This is Nerd Champs. Welcome. If you are wondering, do I have the right channel? You do indeed have the right channel. No, that is not Dan over there next to me. That is our good friend and channel contributor, the Bone Bridger. He is a very big presence on YouTube. Go ahead and check out his channel as well. But we are very glad that everybody is here with us today live to discuss Reacher. Season 3, Episode 7. We're going to be talking about Alan Ritchson's performance of how we're bringing Lee Child's novel, The Persuader, to life. So you just got all caught up today, right, Bone Bridger? This was your first...
I got completely caught up. So I had to watch 3 episodes to get through to this. And I'll say this, watching it like that, 3 episodes I watched week to week, and then watching 3 in a row. Actually, I guess I watched 4 and then I watched 3. Because was this the 7th one technically?
This is 7th technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see the dynamic in the show. I don't know about you, but the episode 7 made me think maybe they went one too many episodes setting up for a finale. Maybe there's just like a little much. Like I enjoyed it, but there's some things I definitely think we'll talk about where it's like they stretched it and added in a layer of would that actually happen? And I'm going to go with that was a little crazy a couple of times.
But, that's kind of been the mantra of this season. They've kind of had a little bit of that, that's not really how Reacher would typically act, and that's not typically how a government agent would typically act, and that's not typically how bad guys would typically act. We've had a lot of that like kind of unbelievable type stuff kind of happen throughout the course of this season. Now I suspend disbelief a little bit for a story. I think we all can, but at the same time there is some stuff that we're going to get to that it's just kind of like, okay, like, enough. So we'll get to some of that stuff. What are your initial reactions to this episode 7, given where we came from previously? The previous episode I think had a lot more action. It also had a lot more suspense with the Richard doing the Russian roulette thing and all that kind of stuff. And then we kind of went into episode 7, which was another kind of setup episode. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it's full on setup. And I mean, I guess we've seen this in the first 2 seasons where they really build up to the last episode is their big thing. I would have liked to see the Polly Reacher fight this episode. I think saving it for the last episode means we have 2 big climactic things where it's him and Polly
are going to get to that.
And you could have split it up a little bit. Game of Thrones, when they were at their best, did this in like 4 and 5 and stuff. The best episodes weren't the finale. They were like episode 5 and 6 and 7 were really good. And 8 was more of like a preview of next season. And I think
I want to say that the Red Wedding was like episode 5 of that season or something, right?
I know it wasn't the last episode.
Yeah, it was like season 3-ish, and it was like episode 5. It wasn't anywhere close to the end. So I think that's just one of those things. It's like you said, the masterful art of trying to put the point in the story at the end of an episode and then making that episode fit in kind of in the line of episodes is kind of the art form that I think that we're kind of looking at here. So it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do in an adaptation. I totally get that. And not everybody can pull it off. I do think that Amazon is still doing a much better job at the end of the episode hooks. I think they're doing a much better job with that than we get anything from Disney. And I think part of that is the adaptation itself. I think a lot of that is what you get from a novel versus a comic book or just an original Star Wars or anything like that. The adaptation of a novel kind of makes it so that at the end of chapters you have that kind of thing. But they've done a very good job with that. And this episode was just like that. At the very end, it's very clear we're in for all-out war at 2 different locations here. So I think that's definitely something that's worth getting into, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But for the most part, this whole episode just kind of felt like setup. It was very slow. They had the sit-down meeting with the ATF, and they were sitting around the hotel room talking about stuff a lot. And, of course, we did have Reacher and Duffy,
everybody knew that was going to happen at some point.
Everybody kind of saw that. I don't know. There's just a lot of that kind of stuff. And it was just a lot of setup, a lot of stuff that I just don't think made a lot of sense. So anyway.
Neely and Beck post that little scene there, it gets really slow for about 20-25 minutes, and then it kind of just ends with like, okay, well, it's going to be next week at the party, which we all knew all season. They've set that up all season that it's going to be this big party where something happens. So I was
Yeah.
surprised they tried to fake that out for a minute.
All right, I'm going to jump in the chat here, and of course, there's somebody that is good old Barry Allen is slow is again reiterating your there was no Reacher Pauly fight yet. So I think that that's something. It's the thing that we've all been waiting. We know there's these
Right.
two enormous individuals. They have to fight at some point, right? You cannot have Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan at the same time and not have them meet at WrestleMania, right? I mean, it
Right.
has to happen at some point.
Right.
And so I feel like everybody kind of thought it was going to be this episode so that the fight with Quinn could be the finale, right? That's
Right.
kind of what everyone thought was going to happen. And it kind of turns out they're going to try to cram them both into one episode, which I really am not a fan of. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but
no, I'm really not a fan of that. And I was super not a fan of them letting Reacher and Quinn meet face to face and Quinn not recognize him. I really hated that. That was the ultimate suspension of logic, in my opinion. Like, there's no way.
It's like Dan and I got into that a little bit last week. It's like, okay, so the guy remembers how to be a gun running scoundrel, but he does not remember the guy that shot him in the face. And
the guy's a big dude. Like, Reacher's very
like he's a very memorable guy. You know, I understand you had amnesia and yes, you got shot in the head and okay, but yeah, there is kind of that little thing there.
Yeah, they could have avoided that. It was like one of those things where it's like you didn't have to do that, really.
Yeah, there were ways to write around it. I think they were trying to stay true to Lee Child, but I understand exactly what you're saying. So, all right, moving on here. Another theory here. Any chance that Paulie turns babyface out of loyalty to Beck and we don't get a fight between him and Reacher? You can't, right? I mean,
no.
Why would you even be flirting?
They made Paulie really evil too. They're like, Paulie's like evil. Like, they made sure to make sure, like, it clear that he is.
You know, when he killed the French girl, and he's been really cold the entire. I see. Yeah, this fight is happening. It's absolutely happening. If they do something like this, it would be terrible. Now, I have not read the book. Have you read the book? I haven't read it. So, see, Dan has read the book, and Dan has pointed out that there are differences between the book and the show. And there's a lot of them, but I think Paulie being a bad guy is gonna stick. I just don't think that's something that would make sense to flip. So
I'd be shocked.
I mean, you know, characters have turned babyface before, but that one just wouldn't make sense. So
right.
Yet another episode. Lots of setup and no payoff. I agree. I mean, it was a lot of setup. Hopefully next week will give us a little bit of payoff. That having two fights. Because he's got to have a fight with Quinn, and he's got to have a fight with Paulie. You've got, and at some point, one of those fights kind of has to be dwarfed to fit within the confines of an episode. So that's kind of going to be the problem. I feel like it's going to be Quinn. I feel like they're going to have a big fight with Paulie, and they're going to dwarf the fight with Quinn, which really wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think the Quinn part's going to be like 2 minutes. Max. It's going to be very quick. It's not going to be anything special.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the fact that they're jamming them both into one episode. I think that, like we've mentioned before, the whole Game of Thrones thing where you did the second to last episode, you really could have done that. This reminds me very much of the much anticipated fight over several years that we had between the Hound and the Mountain. Right. We waited years for that fight.
Yeah, and there was lots of little setups. Yeah.
And when it finally happened, it was kind of surrounded by, because that was the Battle of King's Landing, right? So it was
much going on.
Surrounded by so much going on, they ruined it, right?
Yeah.
And I hope they don't do that with either one of those fights next week. It just would not be great. So Duffy and Reach are sitting in a tree, of course. So let's talk about this for a minute here, okay? Like, this is a thing that happens with these lone wolf characters, right? Your Indiana Jones, your James Bond. Okay. I don't buy it with Reacher. Okay. The only one of these that really made sense was Dixon in season 2. Okay?
That actually made sense. Yeah.
That made sense because of their previous relationship, and they had all this pent up energy over the years and finally just succumbed to each other. That's different than what we see here, which is essentially, hey, I'm here, you're here. And the same thing happened in season 1 with the
Yeah,
sheriff
they're gonna
girl.
do
I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
I,
it's the
I
James
just don't
Bond thing. It's
I
the
don't think it works with Reacher. He's not a character that's like that. Okay, he's built like Zeus and he makes the ladies swoon. I get all that. I just don't think it really works with the character very well to
right.
have him be like that. I don't
Yeah,
know. It doesn't really work for me. And especially
right.
with this character, I don't think that Duffy would have been that kind of a person.
No,
I
I'm
don't
with
know.
you on that. Yeah, I think that it's becoming a cliche of the show now. Like it's
It feels cheap. It does. It
yeah,
feels cheap. It's like as soon as you see a good-looking girl, you're like, okay, that's going to be the faux Bond girl, like every single time. And
yeah,
at first, I'm not gonna lie, they had me for a minute. I thought it was going to be the French girl for a second, but no, but it ended up being Duffy, and here we are.
yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's talk. Let's talk about this. Villanueva and Duffy going behind Reacher's back to set up a sit down with the ATF was a punk move. It was a punk move. I don't know if, because this is a very interesting thing. Nobody was doing anything compliant within the confines of law enforcement, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we got to tell the ATF. I don't know exactly what made them kind of turn on the heel and say, well, we got to get the ATF involved. It's way past time. Well, I mean, it is. It's way past time. So why now?
For sure.
And it doesn't really work within the confines of what Reacher was trying to accomplish. So it kind of was a weird decision at a weird time.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, and that just led to one more boring scene. That was a very boring scene. The
Right.
boardroom with the ATF, and I don't know. What do you think about all that?
No, it's that's where my biggest complaint with the episode was that scene, and even leading up to it was very boring and didn't need to happen. I think this episode could have been shorter. I think this episode didn't even need to happen. I think you could have took the best parts of this episode and put them in the previous episode and gone straight into the finale. That scene is so pointless in my opinion. And then the whole like fake out, it's not the party, whatever. I don't like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. It messed up the vibe of the show a little bit for me too, the pace. I was really digging this show of like it's a small team and it's Reacher and then it started to expand. And I was like, we'll see. I mean, the last episode I'm sure will be more just them, you know?
yeah. I think it's good. They're definitely setting up action because, like I said, we're in for all out
Yeah.
war here. But one of the things that just drives me crazy, one of the things that drives me crazy about this episode is exactly what you said. I kind of feel like a lot of what they showed us could have just been implied. Was there anything that happened in LA other than Duffy and Reacher laying around together? Is there anything in LA that happened that could not have been explained in like a conversation or a
Oh
phone
no.
call or
Yeah.
I just don't think that there was really anything that happened in LA that it constituted what the half, three-quarters of this episode. It was just weird. And
It
so
was.
it was slow. It was not great. Now, to their credit, they're building up, and
Sure.
they're building up, and they did just have a pretty action-packed episode. The
Right.
episode
The one
before
before it
this.
was a lot better. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe they're just kind of taking a little bit of a lull here, but it kind of seemed like this season they kind of took a little more of this filler, a little more of this space than they needed to with the other ones. And Dan explained it this way. He said that there are things that seemed really slow throughout the course of this season, but as you read it on the page, it's something that gives you absolute like tense moments. And the thing that he was talking about specifically was, I think it was episode 2 or 3, where he was driving the truck and remember he had to drive the truck from one place to another place and he had to
Yeah.
stop and let them inspect the truck. And he said that was actually like a really, really tense moment in the book, but it didn't really come across that way on screen.
Right. They
And
didn't make it a
so
big deal. Yeah.
I don't know if that's just kind of the nature of the medium here because it feels like the other seasons have not been like this. You know what I mean?
Right.
It feels
Season
like the
one's
other season.
pacing, I really liked the pacing
Me
of
too.
season one.
Yeah.
Season two, there was times where I didn't like it, kind of unnecessary, wasted time. I felt the team dynamic sometimes didn't work. This season, I think, starts really strong, but eventually, it's like they keep going back to we understand the son and Beck's relationship, like we get it, like we understand that, you know, Duffy and her team are trying to figure this out because to find this girl, but they just keep reminding you over and over. And it's hard to believe certain things, but then you get great moments with the maid girl whose ATF didn't make it. And you have these really serious things with other characters, like the number two, the lieutenant that got taken out. That was cool. Like all that stuff was really good.
Yeah.
So it's like conflicting. It's like a good show. And at times it's really good. And at other times it's like just a little, yeah.
I feel like in season one, what really made it go were the stakes. Yeah, I felt
Yeah.
like the stakes were so much higher than where we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
The stakes just don't feel really high. They feel like they're manufactured high. They feel like they want it to be high, and they feel like it's high for these characters. But just because it's high for these characters, does that mean that it's really high and captivating? And I just don't feel like it is. Season two, I was all on board. Okay, these guys are all out to find out who killed their friend. It was a whole different thing. Great performances by everybody in that season. But this season, it very much feels like the stakes are all very regional. They're all very much just around these particular characters. And yeah, they did try to take out Neagley once they found out stuff and all this. But this idea of Quinn being like this untouchable bad guy, I feel like we've seen worse in the previous two
Yeah, I
seasons.
can't buy it. It's not, we haven't seen anything with him. Actually, he talks about stuff. We haven't actually seen him.
Yeah. In
Yeah,
fact, that's
I'm,
the
yeah,
next comment. I'm not buying
yeah,
Quinn
I'm
as
not
the
buying
worst
it.
of the worst type bad guy. They're trying hard to sell it, but Reacher faced much more equal in seasons one and two. That I would agree with that. I would say that what Reacher has seen in the first two seasons is worse than Quinn.
Oh,
Now
for
Quinn's a
sure.
bad dude, but I feel like he was not a fraction as sinister. They're really trying to build those stakes, but I just don't get it. And that's
Right.
another thing in the book. Dan says when they describe what Quinn actually does as torture to Cole, then that's something that kind of goes on a different level. You're like, oh man, this is a bad dude, right?
Hmm.
And in the book, he tells Neagley, he says, you need to be afraid of this guy. And that's how everybody knows, because he never tells Neagley to be afraid of anybody.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of not translating well. I don't know if they just didn't cast the guy well, if it's not being directed
Right.
well. I don't know, but it's just not landing. And
Yeah,
the
he's
other thing
not
that the other
intimidating.
thing we've talked about, and maybe you can shed a little light on this because you might know, because you've got the people that know the stuff. It feels like the last two seasons they've kind of pulled back a little bit as far as the violence and as far as a lot of the
Oh
R-rated
yeah.
content. Almost like they want this show to be rerun on TNT late night or something. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like this is like they're doing this so that it would gain more viewership or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I
Yeah,
got a vibe that they were trying. Like I'd be interested to know, and I don't know if the budget is kind of reasonable. I got a vibe that this is like a money thing too. Like not that they don't have a budget, but maybe they're trying not to go crazy on it. So they have cool action set pieces, but they're not like extensive.
yeah.
Like they're not like
Well, like
crazy,
in
crazy.
episode one, they literally showed the like naked body of a dude nailed to the wall. You know what I mean? And I was just like,
Yeah.
oh boy, it's that kind of show. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
and
they've moved on from that for sure.
the prison bathroom fight, we have seen
Yep.
nothing that violent. I mean,
Nothing.
that was like supreme. We haven't seen anything like that.
No.
And the last two seasons, it kind of feels very pulled back. It feels very late night cable TV. It doesn't
Yeah.
really feel like they've gone over the top with that stuff. And I don't know if there's a reason for
That could
that.
be something to that. Maybe they're trying to lighten it up a little bit just in case. Like it's very
Yeah.
possible.
And so that might be part of the reason why Quinn is not coming across the way that he
True.
needs to. So I mean, who knows? I mean, it's possible, but this show's a snore fest. So much filler. There is. I will say this season has more filler than I anticipated, and
Yeah, lots of
I
filler.
I think it's just the nature of. I think part of that is just the nature of what
Right. Yep.
of what we're watching, though. I mean,
It is.
that.
I think this show is very consistent in how it goes. The last episode of every season has been worth it, but there's been
Yeah.
episodes leading up to it where you're like, come on, let's keep going.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and everybody loves the spy stuff. Everybody loves the undercover agents. Everybody loves that, man. You know, that's really captivating stuff. Are they ever going to get caught? Are they ever going to get made? You
Yeah.
know, there's all kinds of really interesting storylines that make it in there, but I feel like there are a couple performances that are really good. I feel like Anthony Michael Hall is still very good.
Yeah.
I really like
Yeah.
him in this show. He doesn't ever play the bad guy like very much, so it's good to see him do that. And then, yeah, I feel like Alan Ritchson delivers. Um, minus the scene with Duffy in the last episode where they were in the alley and randomly kiss and they're mad at each other for some reason. I don't know. That was like one of the weirdest. But other than that, Alan Ritchson pretty much delivers. So I feel like they do a great job of directing, trying to make him look a lot bigger than he is because he's really not that big. And so they do a really good job of camera work and directing and building the sets around him and everything to make him look like this behemoth. And so they do a good job with everything. But I feel like this season, just in general, has been a little bit on the slower side. And
Right.
that's not necessarily a terrible bad thing. It's just if I had to pick this would be my third favorite season. So,
And
um,
if the reason for that was just like the budget a little bit, I would be like, ah, I see what you're doing here. Because
yeah.
season one had a pretty big ending set piece, but season two might have gotten out of control on them because they went a little crazy there for a minute.
Oh,
Added
did
in
they?
some
Okay.
things,
Yeah.
I think. So we'll see. It'd be interesting to know that, but you might be right about that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, we'll just have to see. But like I said, some people are finding it boring. Some people are finding it entertaining. I mean, it's still getting much better viewership than we're getting anything from Disney Plus right now. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to gauge. But I know that
Yeah. No, for sure.
it's definitely better than that. So, all right. So even if Reacher saves the day, how in the world does this not end with everybody involved going to jail? That's a good question, right? I mean, Duffy is in big trouble. There's no doubt about it. She's in big trouble. Villanueva actually tried to take the fall for Duffy. That didn't work in this episode. It kind of seems like everybody involved in this case is um, probably going to be in some big trouble, Reacher included, which is one of those things that I just don't really understand. I don't really understand. I mean, the only thing that I could see is Reacher maybe getting away, but I don't know why he would just let Villanueva and Duffy just rot in jail.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
That
really know
would
how
seem
they're gonna
kind of
wrap
weird.
that up. I
Yeah.
mean, because I don't see any of them actually getting in trouble, so it'll be interesting to see how that gets explained
Yeah,
away.
it's like it is because there's the old dumb thing where it's just like, we'll just forget about it since you saved the day. I just don't I think we're past that. All right. There are a lot of people that have died because they did this. There's an ATF agent that's died,
Right,
there's a DEA agent that's died, and probably before the next episode's over, somebody else is going to die. Probably a lot
right,
of those ATF agents that are at the salvage yard are going to die. And I just don't see a situation in which, and this is their fault that it got to that point.
right,
So I don't know. It doesn't
right,
really. This is one of those things. It's like, well, thanks for saving the day, but
right.
you know,
But yeah, like hooray, we saved the city, but the city's burning behind you.
exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah, that
it's,
is a
it's
good point. I have no
SpongeBob
idea
and
how that's
Patrick.
going to resolve.
SpongeBob and Patrick. We saved the
Yeah,
city. It's exactly
we
what it
saved the
is, and
city.
and so I don't know exactly what they're going to do about it. It's just a
Yeah,
weird thing.
I got no
Yeah.
clue on that. Like, yeah, that might be a big plot hole, honestly, when it
Yeah.
gets to it.
Yeah. I mean, and once again, I don't know anything about the books. Maybe this book was left
Right.
open ended. It doesn't seem
True.
like they're the kind of books that are, but I don't know. So we'll just have to see. Okay. So next episode better be wall to wall action, or we pick it at Jeff Bezos' house. So yeah, I don't
It's
know
got
if
to be.
Jeff Bezos had anything. It's got to be right. I mean,
Yeah. I
if
think that's a
there's
safe
ever
safe one.
I feel like there's going to be some kind of a monologuing moment, but yes, we will have nothing but action. It's going to be two complete all-out wars, and
Mhm.
um, I do feel like that's going to be the payoff for the whole season. I hope that they don't go over the top with it because if they
Right.
go over the top, unbelievable.
Right.
I don't know if it's going to be anything that will salvage the rest of what they've done. I hope
Yeah.
they. I hope they give me just the right amount,
Right. That's a good point
but yeah,
because second season didn't end as well as first season because of that.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
of that factor.
Well, and we got to the point where Dixon and the other guy, whatever his name was, were being
Yeah.
tortured. Remember, and it
Right.
almost was like an unbelievable thing
It
that they
was
were
very
actually like
unbelievable. It
they
was
had
like,
all their fingers, and it was just like, come on, guys. Like, I don't know. I feel like this season Quinn, it seems like, is one step ahead, and the reason I'm thinking he's one step ahead is because he had Beck's phone probably tapped, because Beck used his own phone to call Reacher, which I thought at the moment, I said, that's kind of stupid. And then sure enough, Beck already,
yeah,
it seems like Beck was not Beck, Quinn was ahead of them the whole time.
right.
So I feel like that's kind of
Very
where this is
possible.
headed. I feel like that's where this is headed. I mean, kind of predictions. What's your predictions for the finale, and where do you put us wrapping this thing up?
I think Reacher and Polly's fight will be good. I think that the Quinn ending will be a letdown no matter what. My best prediction is I think Beck, and I don't know anything about the book, but I think Beck will do something that's like, okay, redemption maybe for him, a little bit with his son of some kind.
Yeah.
Uh, Other than that, though, I have no clue about resolution with all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I do think that Beck is going to have some kind of redemptive arc. I see him maybe taking a bullet for Richard or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And then I do see Quinn. I do see the Quinn thing being a total letdown. I'm with you on that
Yep.
1,000%. I also think that we're going to see. Oh, look at our good friend Jonathan May says, "What's up, man?"
Oh, what's
Um,
up?
So, regardless of what happens next episode, Jonathan May will say it's the best thing he's ever seen. He will say, absolutely, 1,000%, this is the best season finale of a TV show ever. And so, but yeah, I believe that
It might be.
The Pauly fight is what we're gonna really want to see.
Yeah.
After that, it will only go downhill. So it needs to be toward the end. I feel like it needs to be toward
Yeah.
the end. Then we're gonna have the fight with Quinn at the end.
Ooh,
But yeah,
I got you a curveball.
what's
You know what
that?
I'd love to see is the Quinn thing end first, and him and
Uh-huh.
Polly have a fight at the end. Like that be the actual. That would actually. I'd love that. I need to
Jonathan,
start it.
if you watch this, I'm gonna guarantee you that you would say that it's the best thing you've ever seen, because that's what you say about everything, my friend. So, I love you, John, and thanks for watching, tuning in, appreciate it. But yeah, that definitely would be something. That definitely would be something different, Bone Bridger. I think that would be a little. There's definitely. I think that the ATF stuff is something that. I'm really interested to see how they wrap that up. That's
Yeah.
going to be that's
Right.
going to
How that
I'm,
makes
I'm
sense.
almost
Yeah.
more interested in that than I am the Pauly fight, because it's just
Right.
hanging
Because
out there
it's.
right now.
Yeah.
You
No,
know
you're
what I mean?
right. Absolutely. It's the
I
more like, how does this work?
yeah, it's very, very clear that everybody's going to be in a lot of trouble, but exactly how much trouble, based on what? No, and does Teresa make it out alive? That's another thing.
Right.
I don't think the show would have kept her alive this long just to kill her off in the finale, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I can't
So,
get that grim. Yeah.
Jonathan, I think being overly optimistic is a bit of a reach. Hey,
Reach.
check out my brother Jonathan's interview with Mark Pillow that he just put on YouTube today. So go ahead and check
Oh,
it out
very
at Comic Book
cool.
Cinema. He was at Comic-Con. He got to meet Michael Bean, and
That's what's
I
up.
told him, I said, did you do your best? Did you do your best Doc Holliday impression? He said he didn't, but anyway. But
Oh,
yeah, he
dang.
did. I know there's so many great things that you can do if you meet Michael Bean, man. That's one of them. So you got
Yeah.
to do it. But anyway,
Cool.
so yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much gives us a good wrap on the episode, man. I mean, what do you got
Yeah.
going on, Bone Bridger? You have anything coming up? Yeah, I know you got your streams this week, right? On Friday,
Yeah,
you
we're
got the
back to normal
Isocubes.
streaming. Yep,
Gotcha.
tomorrow
So
at
he's
2.
got Gotcha. He's got the Isocubes tomorrow, 2 o'clock
Mhm.
p.m. Be there, be square. It's a great stream. But that is our very abbreviated. If you know Dan, you know this is a very abbreviated version of our stream. But I feel like we hit all the points, we hit all the
Yeah.
comments. So yeah, I mean, But thank you so much for being here, Bone Bridger. Anything else you need?
Next week, Daredevil and Reacher on this channel at this time.
That's right. Same time next week. We're going to have Daredevil. We're going to have Reacher. We're going to be doing a big extended thing where we're gonna hit the finale of Reacher along with the 2 episodes of Daredevil, right? Because there's 2 episodes.
Right. 2 episodes.
So
yeah.
we're gonna try to condense that as much as we can, but that will be on Thursday night. So
Sweet.
We will see you guys here, and Bone Bridger will be with us. It'll be awesome. So thanks so much, buddy. I appreciate you being here, and go give my guy a follow, man. Go give my guy a follow. He's a good guy. So all right, guys.
Appreciate
well, hey,
it.
thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks a lot.